Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. So today, we're going to unpack an incredibly profound concept that directly challenges one of the most famous sayings we have: ignorance is bliss. We've all heard it, right? But what if having an intellect, what if actually knowing things, operates like a massive line of credit? Today we're diving deep into the foundational paradox of awareness. We're going to look at some absolutely fascinating philosophical and theological concepts that completely reframe how we view human intellect. By the end of this explainer, you're going to see your own intelligence not just as a gift, but as a heavily itemized invoice. Okay, let's start with a classic would-you-rather scenario. Would you trade your human intellect, your ability to think, reason, and understand the universe, for the carefree, completely unaccountable existence of a houseplant? Really think about it for a second. A plant doesn't have deadlines. A plant doesn't have moral dilemmas. A plant never has to lay awake at night worrying about whether it's doing the right thing. It just exists. But of course, you wouldn't trade places with it. Being human is an extraordinary blessing, but that blessing comes with a hidden cost, and that's exactly what we're breaking down today. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The burden of existence. What does it cost to be aware?
So, having an intellect is arguably the greatest blessing we possess, for sure. But it's kind of like being handed a massive, unlimited corporate credit card. It's a fantastic privilege, but the very minute you swipe it, boom, the accounting department expects a detailed report of how you used it, how you earned it, and whether you were actually grateful for it. You don't just get the intellect for free, you're continually audited on it. Look at the two sides here. On the left, we have entities with zero debt, plants like we just talked about, and young children. Why don't they have this existential debt? Well, because they lack full intellect and maturity. They aren't held accountable because they just don't have the capacity to understand yet. But on the right, we have you and me, people with intellect. The second your awareness comes online, you cross a threshold. You enter into a state of debt. In the economy of life, your defining currency isn't money, it's your intellect. The smarter you are, the more aware you are, the heavier that debt becomes.
Moving on to Section 2. To be religious is to be in debt. Reframing accountability.
Let's look at accountability through a fascinating linguistic and theological lens, because this might completely change how you view the whole concept of faith. In our source material, the Arabic and Turkish word for religion is din. But here's the mind-blowing part. The root meaning of this word translates directly to debt, or borç in Turkish. So the crucial point is, to be dindar or religious literally translates to being a person in debt. It means that entering a faith isn't just about, joining a community. It is structurally acquiring a deep, existential debt to a higher power. You're formally acknowledging that you owe everything you have, and you're agreeing to pay it back through your actions.
Let's look at how this actually plays out in practice. There's a really clear contrast here. Non-believers aren't interrogated about specific religious obligations, like daily prayers or declarations of faith, because, they haven't signed the contract. They never opted in. But believers willingly accept a higher spiritual status, and by doing so, they assume the debt of accountability. The logic here is incredibly tight. The more knowledgeable or religious someone becomes, the deeper their existential debt grows. It's exactly like joining a super exclusive club. The perks? Phenomenal. But the membership fees and the strict code of conduct? Yeah, they are no joke.
Which brings us to Section 3. Why is the knower's account heavier? The danger of awareness. We've established that intellect equals debt, but let's shift our focus to the core philosophical difference between the ignorant and the wise. There is a very real danger to awareness. Are those who know equal to those who don't? Now, pause and really think about that. When we hear this famous phrase, our first instinct is to think, well, obviously not. The person who knows is superior. The educated person is way better off. But our source points out a much heavier interpretation. It doesn't just mean the knower is superior in status. It means their test in life is far more severe. The stakes are infinitely higher. When you know the truth, or you understand how things actually work, your slip-ups are judged much, much more harshly.
Ignorance has an excuse. Knowledge does not. Think about it like this. If a toddler knocks over a vase and breaks it because they just don't understand gravity yet, we excuse them, right? They simply didn't know. But if a grown adult throws a vase on the ground, they're held entirely responsible. Once you know something, you permanently lose the free pass of ignorance. You can never unknow it. Your intellect totally removes your excuses. When you make a mistake while knowing better, it's not a lack of understanding anymore, it's a failure of execution. And the account for that is incredibly heavy.
Section 4. The Wealth and Tax Analogy. Making sense of the burden.
And this brilliantly illustrates the whole idea. To make this heavy theological concept super grounding, let's look at an everyday analogy.
On the left side, we have poverty, which acts as our stand-in for ignorance. If you have absolutely zero wealth, you pay zero taxes. You aren't obligated to give to charity. You fly completely under the radar of the tax authorities. But you also live in difficulty, and you don't enjoy the status or comfort of society. Now on the right side, we have wealth, representing knowledge and intellect. If you are extremely wealthy, your taxes are heavy. You're expected to give back, to support the poor, to fund projects. Your financial responsibilities are massive. But in exchange, you get high respect, comfort, and amazing resources. So imagine someone asking you, would you rather be completely destitute just so you don't have to deal with tax season? No way. Almost anyone would choose the wealth, fully accepting the heavy taxes and responsibilities that come with it because the benefits far, far outweigh the burden.
Let's move to section 5 and see how this builds. The high status of knowing, the ultimate trade-off. We actually resolve our initial paradox right here by connecting that financial analogy straight back to your intellect. Just like nobody would choose poverty just to dodge the IRS, nobody should regret the burden of their intellect. Because of it, you're granted high status, a much richer inner life, and the sheer joy of actually understanding the universe around you. These are deeply enjoyable areas of evaluation that an ignorant person, or, our metaphorical houseplant from the beginning, completely misses out on. Yes, the ignorant person has a lighter load. Yes, they have way fewer moral debts. But they're completely excluded from the profound beauty of awareness. The heavy burden of knowledge brings a richer existence that no sensible person would ever voluntarily trade for the tax-free life of ignorance.
Which leaves us with this final thought. You've been given the immense wealth of intellect. You are no longer ignorant, which means your excuses are gone and your existential taxes are due. The question isn't whether you owe the debt. You definitely do. The question is, are you ready to pay the heavy invoice of knowledge? Think about how you use your awareness every single day. And remember that with great understanding comes a beautifully heavy responsibility. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.